Hi guys, and welcome back. So in today's video, we all decided to do a collaboration, so between Raul, Haley, and myself, and we are each going to be going through different 3D modeling softwares and showing you guys how we like to build on those platforms, and also we will then be taking them all our finished models into Adobe Aero and showing them in an outdoor space. So, kind of showing how three different platforms and different people can come together to kind of make a beautiful artwork in a real life space. So here I decided to go back to Nomad Sculpt since I have been playing around with that app for a little bit. So yes, this is the app on my iPad, and I think that it works really well. And I do think it's very beginner friendly, especially with the shape tools that I like to use a lot. I feel like people usually think that you have to like build just using like a brush and just kind of like morphing it with a brush only, but I like the fact that I can just go in, add some shapes, and with the gizmo tool that Nomad Sculpt has, it's much easier to kind of manipulate the different shapes that it already gives you. So, yeah. Also, like to mention the theme that we chose for all of our little 3D sculptures was spring. So, you can see here how I am making a little baby duck and just making it kind of cartoony, nothing too realistic, just more on the fun side for myself. And here you can see that I decided to add a little flower hat to my baby duck just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I was able to take, like the move tool and kind of manipulate that shape to be more petal like, and just kind of cloning it and using a snap tool to kind of help me make sure everything is balanced and proportionate. And here I'm just taking the trim tool and just trimming out any extra things that might be sticking out. As you can see, that took me a little bit time to figure out, but once I found the correct technique, it went by much faster, and I was pretty happy with the outcome. So you can see there I was like still trying to figure out how to get the trim correctly without also trimming any additional things that I didn't mean to trim. But then I just ended up meshing it all together so that way it was just one full object and just smoothed out any kind of creases that it may have. And then I was able to take it back into Procreate and paint on top of it like I did with my llama model in my previous video. And here I was just adding in some like fun little kind of textures with my brush.
Hi, my name is Haley Kubat, and for this collaboration, I did OpenBrush. Now, OpenBrush is an application on the VR headset that is a virtual reality drawing program. Now, this is not like your typical sculpting program as you previously saw. It is a drawing application. So the brushes here really don't move around and push like a normal sculpting application. It is just a basic drawing application. Now, due to this, it's pretty user friendly, and I actually had a friend who did not know anything about virtual reality, and I gave him a headset, and he was pretty much able to fully grasp the brushes, the controls, and just overall the unique environment pretty fast. Now, I do love working in virtual reality, especially OpenBrush, since it has very little limitations compared to other sculpting programs. Another program I did, ShapeLab, it was a little bit more challenging and difficult, but I barely felt constricted by the sculpting aspect. And some other programs, such as Blender, can be intimidating without a lot of research. Now, we do have someone in this video that knows how to use Blender, but I definitely could not do that. And I'm fairly happy with the little bunny I made. I also used a lot of the brushes here. I used the hole brushes, which are my favorite. I used some of the icing brushes and some of the flower brushes. Now, a little issue about that as well, when porting over a drawing from OpenBrush to Blender, you have to do, or at least I suggest, to do a test swatch of each brush you're going to use before creating your creation. Because when I ported over my drawing from OpenBrush to Blender, the icing brush did not transfer over properly, which caused some gaps to be in my drawing. Now we were able to fix it in post in Blender, which you definitely can do if you want to just block in shapes in OpenBrush and then maneuver them over to Blender for the finer details. But it was a little bit of an inconvenience, and just letting you know from my experience what I would do next. And another thing that I find really fun about this collaboration is we're going to be putting these sculptures in an AR setting, which means augmented reality, which basically means we're combining real world elements with virtual reality or 3D modeled objects that are not really there. And companies such as IKEA and Zara are already doing this, and it's making the consumer's life so much easier. And in a business perspective, it's pretty advanced to be doing stuff like this. The consumer doesn't even need to purchase the item to know what it looks like in their house. And I believe this is really cool and can be really beneficial for the future. I also do believe that in an artistic way, this is just a very fun way to experience art. And overall, I'm pretty excited that we were able to do this collaboration. And so now I would like to take it on to our next person doing Blender. Thank you. Hi, my name is Haley Kubat, and for this collaboration, I did OpenBrush. Now, OpenBrush is an application on the VR headset that is a virtual reality drawing program. Now, this is not like your typical sculpting program.
My software of choice for this project will be Blender, and this is all done on the sculpting like workspace in Blender, and this all came from just one ball. The main tools that I used was like the draw brush, the grab brush, and the elastic snake hook, since that allows me to kind of like extrude like corners and surfaces from the ball in order to create this whole geometry. And of course, I always remember to remesh as I went. This 0.1 like meters is good for blocking out shapes, and as you get more specific into the details, like for little crevices or like sharp like bends in the model, that's when you want to reduce this voxel size to make it even more precise. But after that, I went into the UV editing, and if I go into object mode, you can see if I change the render, if I change the render here to include the texture so we can see, and then go back to object mode, you can see here also, before I move on, that I UV unwrapped, selecting everything, pressing U, and doing a smart unwrap. It was able to automatically give me a pretty primitive and basic like unwrap. And then I took this into Substance Painter, which is a really easy program. There's a lot of tutorials out there to use to physically paint on my model. And then I was able to export that same from Substance Painter. I was able to export the UV map and replace it here in Blender in order to give it the more finished look that it has now. So if I find how to go back to object mode, you can see here is my completed work for my contribution to this project. Now I created another location-based project with now all three file types combined, and so now I'm gonna scan this QR code and I'll be back once the project is fully loaded. Project has booted up completely. I now have all of our files here together in the same project file. So you can see here, here's Nicole's ZBrush file. And you can see that it came out there really clean, and all the colors came through. Her model is very like nice and elegant and sleek. And then Haley's here. This is her OpenBrush file. She made like a bunny with like flowers. And again, the geometry came out all well. It's all very clear. It's very sharp and clean. And like the small details like the flowers also look really great here in the AR experience. Then lastly, I have my Blender file that has a bit more of like a rougher like claymation style to it, but still came through. The only thing to keep in mind when you're doing projects like this with multiple models is the geometry, because the heavier the file is, the longer it might take to load, and depending on the phone, sometimes it might not load at all. But overall, this was just to prove that three different people working on three completely different softwares can all come together and create an experience for everyone.